Back in '94, I planted 6 of them. Now, 30 years later, I'm still pulling one out of my driveway. Another one decided to take over my neighbor's yard. And one gave me the biggest scare of my life with my granddaughter. Here are the flowers I really wish someone had warned me about. Number 13, Creeping Jenny. You might see it sold as Lysimachia numularia. My neighbor brought over a little plastic bag of it around the spring of 2004. Just a handful of stems to fill in some shady spots, she said. She wasn't wrong. By the next year, it had completely taken over the shade, the sunny patches, the lawn edges, and even choked out the time I'd been babying for years between the patio stones. When I jokingly brought it up to her later, showing her how it crawled right back under the fence into her yard, she just stared at it and said she thought it had always been there. That's the crazy thing about this plant. It sneaks around so quietly you forget where it came from. It roots everywhere it touches the dirt. You don't just pull it. You end up following it across the yard, ruining a perfectly good Saturday. If you want that look, just get a hardy geranium like Roseanne. You get beautiful flowers all summer, and it actually stays where you put it. Number 12, lemon balm. Look, if you crush a leaf, it smells amazing, like pure lemonade. It makes a wonderfully calming tea, and every gardening book tells you to plant it. So I did, twice. First time was in an open bed near the kitchen. A few years go by and suddenly it's popping up in the rose bed 8 feet away. It travels underground, and whatever the roots miss, the seeds take care of. I had this lovely coral bells plant there since 2001, and slowly, year by year, it just faded away. Lemon balm doesn't just announce its arrival. It slowly suffocates its neighbors, until one spring you realize the spot is just empty. If you really want it, keep it in a pot, on a patio, nowhere near bare soil. Number 11, the older varieties of bee balm, also known as monarda. Hummingbirds absolutely flock to this stuff the second it blooms in early July. It's magical. But then August rolls around. Those older unnamed red varieties, like Cambridge Scarlet or just generic pots labeled red bee balm, almost always get powdery mildew by mid-July. It looks like someone dumped flour all over the leaves. By late summer, it's basically a bare 4-foot stick, looking totally defeated. I always thought I was doing something wrong, but it's just how those older genetics work. Do yourself a favor and look for mildew-resistant ones like Jacob Klein or raspberry wine. The hummingbirds will still come, and you won't have to look at a powdery mess in August. Number 10, creeping phlox, in the wrong spot. Don't get me wrong, on a slope or a retaining wall, it's one of the best spring perennials out there. The mistake I made was trusting it in a flat bed right next to my lawn. I just assumed it would behave. By the 3rd year, it had tangled itself so badly into the grass that I couldn't pull one without ripping up the other. I ended up having to dig out the whole section, install a deep steel edge, and start completely over. Give it a hard physical boundary, and it's wonderful. Take that boundary away, and it'll teach you a hard lesson. Those first 4 I could explain away as bad placement or my own fault. The next ones were harder to forgive. Number 9, wisteria. I still have an old photo from the early 2000s showing mine in full bloom, draping over the pergola. It looks straight out of a magazine, which is exactly why I planted it. But fast forward a few years, those massive woody vines had actually pulled 2 of the pergola posts completely out of whack. A couple of years after that, it snuck under my garage roof shingles. At one point, I actually found it growing inside the garage, behind the drywall. Wisteria vines turn into thick wood that can literally tear houses apart. It took me 4 years of cutting and treating stumps to fully eradicate it, and I had to hire a contractor to fix the garage. Beautiful? Yes. Worth the property damage? Absolutely not. Number 8, English ivy. It seems like the perfect fix for a bare slope or that dark spot under an old tree where grass won't grow. And honestly, for the first year or 2, it is. But around year 5, it starts scaling the trees. Arborists actually call ivy-covered trees widowmakers because the extra weight makes branches unpredictably heavy during storms. And if it reaches a woodland edge, it just carpets over all the native plants that wildlife actually needs. That's why over half the country lists it as invasive. Just plant Pachysandra instead. It does the same job in the shade without trying to bring down a mature oak. If you are watching this channel for the first time, this is what we do here. We tell you what actually happens after year 1. Subscribe now and the next video will find you. Number 7. Goutweed. I actually inherited this one. The previous owners planted the variegated kind along the side of the house. It looked so tidy in the real estate photos. But underneath it spreads by these brittle roots that snap if you try to dig them out. And every single broken piece spawns a new plant. I tried covering it with landscape fabric and thick gravel, but it pushed right through. Eventually I had to hire professionals to deal with it. That's when you know a plant has won. When you stop digging and start writing checks. Number 6. Running bamboo. The catalogs sell it as this dramatic, fast-growing privacy screen, but they conveniently leave out the running part. Unlike clumping bamboo, the running type sends shoots 10 or 15 feet underground in a single summer before you even see them. A few years in, it's in your lawn. Then it's under the fence. I know a neighbor down the street who planted it a decade ago. It crossed 3 property lines, and one of the neighbors actually sued. If the tag doesn't explicitly say clumping, assume it's going to run. Number 5. Trumpet vine. People plant this for the hummingbirds, and yes, it produces gorgeous orange-red flowers all summer. But the problem is how it climbs. It doesn't just wrap around things. It digs these tiny aerial rootlets directly into brick mortar and wood siding. I put it on a wooden arbor back in '06, and within 4 years the arbor had to be rebuilt. Then it started sending underground runners 15 feet through the lawn toward my house's foundation. Put it on a freestanding post, out in a field if you have to, but keep it far away from your walls. The last 4 are the ones I think about every April when I walk past the garden center. Number 4. Obedient plant. It gets the name because if you push the little flowers around on the stem, they stay exactly where you put them. But the roots are completely disobedient. I planted 3 little pots in a sunny border, and within a few years I had a 12-foot patch that was suffocating a 20-year-old peony. Even the supposedly tame varieties like Miss Manners will take off if the soil is nice and moist. Unless you bury a deep barrier around it, it'll just keep going. Number 3. Plume poppy. It's incredibly dramatic. Huge blue-green leaves and these tall white flower spikes. I planted one against the back fence, wanting a focal point, and it looked great for a couple of years. But by year 4, it was popping up inside my established roses. A friend of mine out in Ohio had hers, travel 20 feet, and push right up through a compacted gravel path. She walked on every single day. It's essentially a wild field weed dressed up for the garden center. If you live on less than an acre, leave it on the shelf. Number 2. Goldenrod. Now, my dad hated this plant. He went to his grave convinced it caused his August hay fever. He was wrong, by the way. Ragweed causes hay fever, but goldenrod gets the blame because its yellow flowers are so visible. It's actually an amazing plant for monarch butterflies and native bees. My mistake was buying the generic, unnamed wild type from a big box store. Within 5 years it turned into a massive colony that choked out everything else. I should have bought a compact, clumping variety like Fireworks. My dad blamed it for the wrong reasons, and I bought the wrong variety. Between the 2 of us, we got it completely wrong. And finally, number 1. Lily of the Valley. I have to admit the smell is perfect. That's why I planted 6 of them near the kitchen window back in '94. It reminded me of a specific afternoon in my mom's garden. But man, I had no idea what I was starting. A few years in, there were 20, then 60. 10 years later, they were forcing their way through cracks in the front walkway. Eventually, my neighbor called to ask about the cute white bells creeping into her yard. It's nearly impossible to pull out without breaking the roots. and every piece grows back. Plus, the whole plant is highly toxic. My granddaughter once picked a flower and almost put it in her mouth before I could sprint across the yard. We were fine, but that split second of panic was enough for me. Not every family gets that lucky. 30 years later, I'm still just managing the edges of that patch. I've accepted it'll outlast me. Every May, I take a second to enjoy the smell. And then I get right back to weeding. 13 flowers. Some snuck up on me while I wasn't looking. Some were badly labeled. And some I'm still actively fighting today. They all looked exactly right in April and exactly wrong a few years later. Don't plant them without borders. Read the tags. And if you already have one of these, if you are 3 years into a creeping Jenny situation, or you have bamboo crossing your property line, or you planted lily of the valley in the 90s and know exactly what I mean, drop it in the comments. Tell me which one and tell me what state you garden in. I read every comment. The next list is already being built from what you tell me. Subscribe before you go. Next video is the other side of this one. The perennials that spread just as beautifully, but actually stay where you want them. See you then.